Hello dear friends. In the video we will briefly describe the events in September, and we will also remind ourselves of what awaits us in the future, as we talked about that already. Full moon will happen in Pisces on September the 10th. New moon is on the 25th of September in Libra. The sun is in Virgo until the 24th, then is in Libra. Mercury is retrograde in Libra from the 10th. Venus from the 6th is in Virgo. Mars is in Gemini all month and is getting more and more important. Jupiter retrograde in Aries, Saturn retrograde in Aquarius, Uranus retrograde in Taurus, Neptune retrograde in Pisces, and Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. So let's remember again, when the most planets are retrograde, we go back, we re-experience something we already experienced. We learn from something that happened in the past. Maybe we even repeat old mistakes. Psychologically speaking, it is a time for integration of previously experienced. It is the time for analysis and completion of previously started work. So this is not a good period to start anything new. Therefore, on an individual and on the mundane level, September will be especially significant for completing what is previously started, because already in October, Saturn and Pluto will be direct. Also in October and November, we have a period of eclipses, and they mean the end and the beginning of something new. Often, they mean reversal for 180 degrees. And we also know that eclipses are now on the Taurus-Scorpio axis, and the biggest changes and upheavals are experienced by people who have planets in Scorpio or in Taurus, either planets or ascendant. And we also know that the biggest changes we can expect in the field of economy, finances, through the constant threat of biological life on Earth. I will talk more specifically about this in October, but I remind you that there is my video on YouTube about these eclipses, so if you can watch it if you want to know in advance what we will experience in autumn. The full moon is in Pisces on the 10th and marks the end of something. And in this time it is in a big style. Venus is in a weak position during this full moon and Mercury is stationary. So it's not time for shopping, for wasting money or anything, but it's time for that to be modest. It can also mean a lot of things, and this energy can be used in different ways. For example, French president recently told to French people that abundance is over and that they will have to live more modestly because freedom is important to them. So pay attention for that reason. What a crazy explanation. The so-called modest life is not coming to the countries of European Union and France and other countries in this world. Especially is not coming to colonial powers because they are fighting for their freedom, but because their way of life is exhausted and because others want to be free of them. Fortunately, Macron himself no longer has the support of the majority in the parliament, and he was not able to push through the shameful law. Well, if the end of colonialism ever happened, it will be this now in our time, but let's wait to see. So, who will have to humble themselves, but not for reason other than what is freedom? These are first of all colonial countries and America, those who took from others by force. The representatives of the governments of these countries cannot tell their people that they are supporting now the destruction of the people they represent. So they tell them that is the sake for freedom or the sake for their own good. For the good of people are also sanctions against Russia, I guess. Yeah? And then in that case, if we try to see it clearly, then gas, oil, wood, and all raw materials go to the east, to eastern countries, Arabic countries, to India. And if the trend continues, it will most probably continue, then all of those materials, raw materials and everything, all of those resources that we have will go to the east and not to the west. And what will happen? Try to imagine. I will leave you to think of that. And is it for the freedom of people, or is it because politicians and others do not want to admit that their system has failed? There's just one piece of information that America, the country that is model for many, like the country of dreams for many people, is the most indebted country in the world. Perhaps the most indebted country since ever. Well, always comes the time to collect debt. After all, it is not clear to me why someone does not understand that everything has the end and that everything is born again, but in a new form. Denying the basic laws of life and death, the law of life and death, is devastating, but it is the inseparable part of Western civilization. Remember that they had one ideology who declared that the end of history came. That was the moment when they were on the top of the power. It was recently. So imagine the history, and after that, nothing. No history. This is their idea of life. During the full moon in Pisces, the moon will be near Neptune. And this represents illusions and lodging for salvation. And of course, many will be saved after these floods that Neptune in Pisces represents on a spiritual and any other level, but maybe not all. I don't know who will be saved or who will not be saved. It's not my business to talk about that and to decide, of course. But there is trouble here. If I want to say something about that, then I would say that those who integrate the Taurus energy will be saved. And that is those who have their own resources, their knowledge, their abilities. That is those who are not dependent on anyone, not even on banks. This applies to be the rule, like for the collective, for countries, and for individuals as well. Also, conjunction of the moon and Neptune now can represent the end of illusion for someone. During September, the square of Saturn and Uranus is being prepared, which will be exact at the very beginning of October. We have often talked about the fact that it means the clash of old and new, and that something new is born, but through some strong fight, that is inner fight in us actually. That's why it is represented by fights in the world. But we also said that this square has its positive sides. Unfortunately, these squares appeared at the time when people's freedom of movement was limited, and it is possible that something like that will repeat in fall, but maybe for other reason, not because of the diseases. So far as I see, they are not managing to push new diseases. Many frauds are discovered, and we will see if it will come through disease, or maybe people will close themselves and limit themselves because they will be afraid of climate, because now they are making for us tornadoes and these kind of things. They are very skilled now. So maybe some other reasons can be why people will be closed, or maybe closing their houses, and perhaps will limit themselves. This cycle of Uranus and Saturn started in the year 1988 and will finish in the year 2032. The first square happened in the year 1999, and just before, when the first square of Uranus and Saturn was exact, Serbia was bombed, countries where Serbs live in ex-Yugoslavia, and that was the beginning of the crisis. And now when we see the last square in autumn of 2022, this is the biggest crisis of the consciousness, but it is the last square at the same time. Both of these planets, Saturn and Uranus, are very significant for Slavic people, but not only for them. They say that Uranus is quite important for France, for example, but for many other countries also. I would not be surprised if something happens now in the fall in the areas of the world where Serbs live now, or some other Slavic people. I only hope if there are going to be some fights that they will be short-lived and that they will give good results from the point of view of the future. There is no need to be afraid in September and autumn. It is better to accept the restrictions and wait for this storm to pass. Those who know how to wait and live healthy and a normal life, in these times they will live healthy and normal life after that also. It is obvious that as a collective, we are maturing and becoming more responsible for ourselves and for others, and these lessons are not easy lessons. Furthermore, it is a mistake to think that this will pass and that we will return to normal life as we thought normal life was in the past. Nothing will be like before, because the changes that are coming now will be systemic changes, so the system will change in a large scale. Saturn in Aquarius itself means changes in the relationship between society and individuals. They also mean the demolition of old structures in the society. Saturn in Aquarius means the creation of new international organizations and new communities on the state level, so new countries. I talked about that a few years ago in my video Saturn in Aquarius. Please check the video if you forgot what we were talking about in that time. I also talk about Mars in Gemini in my video for August, so I'm not going to repeat that now. If you are interested, check that video. But definitely Mars sharpens its teeth and leads an intelligent fight in the coming months. The battles and wars that are being waged now are very, very complex, and we do not know much about that because we have fake information. Nevertheless, it is quite true that the war is getting more intense, and the war is being waged by the two largest armies in the world, and now we wait to see if the third army will also be involved. It is also clear that Mars in Gemini, at least for one side or maybe for other also in this war, this war is because of business. People who have their planets in Pisces, especially those who have Sun or Ascendant in Pisces, with this full moon now are going through the phase of the end of one 6-month cycle. But with Saturn in the 12th house, which they have already for 2 years approximately, they are actually going through the end of the 30-year cycle. This 30-year cycle is the Karmic cycle. So actually for them something can end now which they started even in previous existences. Some pay for something they did before, some can be even awarded for something that they did in the past, and it is worth of some awards. But that's very rare, I have to say. Saturn in the 12th house is the transit that each of us experience, usually twice during life, depends how long we live. And it always means that it's time to get rid of everything that no longer serves to us. We do not need those things anymore for our further development or for our path of getting of the self-knowledge. And during this process, actually, slowly, some new internal structures are created. These structures are created in the unconscious level, and the person often does not know what is exactly happening until the Saturn emerges in the first astrological house. And then what happens is that that person is more responsible for himself, herself, and more mature. And this is the process that now Piscean people have. The new moon will happen on the 25th of September in Libra at the 2nd degree. It mostly affects Libra of the first decade, but other Libras also. It symbolically marks the future six months period. The ruler of this new moon is Venus, which is again in decline, in its fall, as we say in astrology, in Virgo. And Libra people, like many others, will have to humble themselves, but will have a good period for writing and revising relationships. It will be a good period for regeneration also, and gradual and systematic strengthening of one's own will. And on the mundane level, this new moon signifies the strengthening of the will and even use of force, because diplomacy does not seem to give good results now. Astrologically, Venus has some characteristics of the goddess Tyche, whom the Romans called Fortuna. Often, other female deities from mythology are identified with Venus because Venus herself has at least 12 forms. In each zodiac sign, it gets different characteristics. Traditional astrology holds that Venus in Virgo is in fall. Therefore, here, even if she has its horn of plenty or horn of abundance, she gives modestly, or even she does not give anything if it is not merited. In general, we can say that now the law of attraction works very poorly. So it is not possible to charm somebody in order to get something. This law will not really function. That is why it is inevitable to reduce desires during September. When the sun is in Virgo, there is equilibrium in nature. According to Chinese theory of 5 elements, the second half of September is ruled by the earth element, which brings peace and stability. And it is very, very rare and very short period in nature when earth rules. In Western astrology, it is the time of abundance. But you see, now they're making people to be afraid because they say there is no abundance anymore, And not only that they threaten people, but they create poverty and hunger. At the end of August, I traveled through northern Serbia and Hungary, and I saw burned corn, thousands and thousands of hectares without corns, like nothing grown on this corn. Everything was golden color. And they say that northern Serbia and Hungary can give enough food for almost all Europe. So is this the product of geoengineering or something similar? I guess most probably yes, it is. But many of us survived even in worse times, so I'm sure we will survive now if we decide so. So it is not time to humble ourselves because there are no raw materials and because there are no resources for us and because we like freedom, or freedom is important for us. It is the time to humble ourselves because of those who were stealing from others, and who were carelessly wasting the resources of this planet. We are all preparing for that, to humble ourselves now, unfortunately, and we are all paying the price in some way because of them who were capitalists and only thinking about that, how to make money. We said that since September the 10th, Mercury is going to be retrograde in Libra. This Mercury only adds to this symbolism that we already explained. People from the past may return to Libras, and maybe many Libras will learn something from them, and maybe all other zodiac signs can also expect to resolve all relationships and maybe meet people from the past. Later during October, it will be a much better period for partnership and any kind of relationship, and especially from the October the 10th. Then it is also a good period for weddings. As you know, weddings are usually in May or in October when Venus rules. In general, things are moving from October. Things are getting more dynamic. For some of us here, for better, and for others, it depends on their previous lives. So some will get, some will lose, as usually. European Union is the successor of the colonial powers, as the same as America, as we said. But European Union may be the first to be hit by the new economic crisis, which is deliberately and purposely created. But it also is the result of the attrition of the old paradigm. That impact can be felt as early as September ends, as we said, but can last for a long time. However, all European countries can take care of themselves the same as all other countries in the world and get rid of the matrix that somebody predicted to them, and all of them can live in accordance with the resources they have. That would be the modesty that really makes sense. That is turning to our sources of energy and wisely disposing of those sources with the awareness that future generations should also live on this planet. It is not good to explore others, to cruelly exploit the nature, and to kill animals for the profit of the small number of people. This direction, go towards your own resources. Respect that what you have and what you know is the direction that North Node in Taurus is showing to us. And it will be more than clear since October and November this year. Through the Taurus archetype, we learn what are our true values and how we and our work value, how is valuable our knowledge and our abilities, how is valuable for us clean air and water and nature and everything that is given by God. And we learn to compare those natural resources, our resources that we have within us, with that what man created in cities and through politics, and that what man nurtures so far through the politics and these things. And on the basis of this comparison, we determine ourselves in the context of eternity. Since August, we said also that revolution is here. I spoke about that in my August video. So some sort of revolution is coming, in which countries and how it will be significant for different nations, we will see, but it's definitely coming. And that's all for now that I wanted to tell you in this September video. If you wish, you can order consultations with me. You will find everything in the description below this video. My web pages are symbolicthinking.net. So just pay attention please on that I do not deal with classical astrology. I work on personal development, astrological psychology, spiritual astrology. I do Theta healing as the method of energetically spiritual healing of people, and I also do Feng Shui. If you like the video, like it, please share it, subscribe to my channel, and thank you very much for that in advance. I wish you happiness, I wish you joy and abundance, even in this condition. And see you soon.